What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shuggy from Shook Earth Media, and today we are talking about Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. This is the new Resident Evil movie in theaters today. Well, it's after midnight, so it's not Thanksgiving anymore, but happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody. So this movie came out today, and I just kind of decided on a whim to see it, just because I was like, you know what? Even if it's terrible, we'll get a review out of it. That was my thought process. I did not have high anticipations, to be honest. I expected it to be terrible, and that was just my expectation going in. I actually highly enjoyed it. I think it's a very solid film, very enjoyable, lots of great zombie action, and let's just jump right into it. So, I will say that as a Resident Evil fan, you'll be conflicted. If you're not a Resident Evil fan, I don't know that there's really gonna be as much to the film for you. But at the same time, if you're a big Resident Evil fan like me, I've played all the games and, seen all the, the animated movies and stuff and all of that. Well, forget about those animated movies for now. I will say, of the films that I've seen, this is the best Resident Evil film. I haven't seen any of the live action ones before this, but this is the best Resident Evil film that I've seen. I will just say right out the gate, if you're a big Resident Evil fan and you're a purist, you want all the characters to be the same characters as they're represented in the game, you're going to be kind of disappointed in this. I will say, the characters have the same names. You got Claire Redfield, you got Chris Redfield, you got Leon S. Kennedy, you got Jill Valentine, you got Wesker. All these characters, they really, it's just the name. They are not really representative of their video game counterparts. They try little bits to make them appear the same. They will have the similar outfits. They will be, there's similar visual things, but it's mostly visual. Like Leon will do his pose with the gun and stuff. So, but in general, the only character that I thought really was kind of the same as their counterpart was Chris. He got the same look. There's a lot of little Easter eggs. We'll get into the Easter eggs later. But, he's the one character I felt like was most consistent. But even then, they gave him and Claire kind of a backstory where they were orphans growing up in the orphanage. And we know that there's messed up stuff going on there from the games. And it's a fine addition. I actually didn't really have an issue with that. But, it's a fundamental thing to their characters. And they make it kind of the driving narrative force, and there's conflict between them. I can see why they did that. It makes a lot of sense to have some conflict between your main protagonists. That's not really something that they have in the games as much, but in a film where you can explore these characters more, there needs to be some kind of driving force like that, especially with familial relations. So that only makes sense to me. So I will say that it didn't bother me, but there are a lot of differences that kind of did bug me. Just before we get too deep into that, I will say overall I was a little trepidatious going into this film because, it is trying to do both the first game and the second game at the same time. I thought it was going to be entirely too much. It actually ends up being mostly the second game with the setting of the first game included, and a couple little Easter eggs here and there, but there's a lot of Easter eggs, and that's probably going to be the most fun part for fans. So, be on the lookout for that. But I will say, like I said, the characters very different than their video game counterparts. The biggest difference, though, is definitely Leon S. Kennedy. He's kind of one of the standout characters in the Resident Evil series. In the animated films, he's like the star of all of them. He's, in Resident Evil 4, he's a big character in Resident Evil 6. He's a very iconic character for the franchise. And this movie did him so dirty. It is actually, to me, kind of a disgrace of the character. He's just kind of the butt of all the jokes in the movie. He's the rookie cop. and he's incompetent. And, I thought maybe they were doing that at first so that he can then be heroic later and come into his own later. But, the idea that this Leon will go on to work for the president and do all the things of Resident Evil 4, it's just hard to see it. I mean, they do give him a heroic moment at the end, but, in general, it was just cringeworthy. If it was a different character, it didn't have Leon's name and stuff, I wouldn't bother me at all. But just the way they did Leon so dirty in this movie. So that's the biggest frustration to me. Also, like, Jill Valentine is nothing like her, video game character. She's basically just trigger happy in this one. That's like her main characteristic. It's a little weird. There's some love triangle stuff going on, and that's fine. That makes sense too. I mean, that's kind of the interplay you'd want to have between characters in a film as opposed to a video game. But it played off fine. But again, it's just not the same character at all. It just shares her name. So, like I said, if you're a purist and you want all those things to be the same, you will be a little bit disappointed. But in general, there was really good zombie action in this. When they're in the sets, let's jump into the Easter eggs. So there's so many visual cues that are just so perfect. I mean, you go into the RPD, it's exactly how it looks in the video game. You got the statue, you got the lobby, the STARS office. Everything looks phenomenal. And the mansion as well. We don't get as deep into the mansion, but the sets that they do have are incredible. There's little Easter eggs all over the place. They got like an advertisement for the first aid spray in the orphanage. The orphanage looks like the orphanage from the video game, at least the Resident Evil 2 remake, the recent one. So there's little subtle cues all over the place. I mean, Chris has got his lighter. He used his lighter at one point. They give Claire the keys. They got the diamond key, the spade key. It's very much the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the TV. Oh, it's that thing. That's this movie for fans. So if you want to see all these little cues, I mean, they have a post-credit scene. I won't spoil it or anything, but they have... It's straight out of the one particular cutscene that starts off the Resident Evil remake, at least the Resident Evil remake, the first one. So that's incredible. If you're a fan, like I said, you're really gonna like those little shout-outs here and there. But yeah, in general, I mean, we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the film setting up the characters. There's a lot of suspense building. And the suspense is actually pretty good, but the beginning stuff with the orphanage, we could have done without that. But I actually do think it's a nice element to add, a little backstory for Claire and Chris, changing the motivations a little bit. I don't actually have an issue with that. I did like Claire in this movie. She's the standout. I would say she's the main character more or less. First on the call sheet, So she feels like the most screen time, and what was weird is they kind of gave her some characteristics of Jill from the games. I mean, she's picking locks, she's investigating Umbrella, and coming up with a lot of theories about what's going on before a lot of the other characters do. So in a lot of ways, she's kind of the outsider point of view character that we see the world through. So that's kind of cool. I did enjoy her in this film. And she's always been like a kind of underutilized character in the series almost. I mean, she was in Resident Evil 2 and Code Veronica, but then we didn't see her until Revelations 2, as far as I remember. But yeah, I mean, we saw her in Infinite Darkness this year and stuff like that. But, seeing her... Well, I think she was in... Was she in some of the other animated films? But, whatever. You get what I mean. She's a character that I've always really thought stood out and wanted to see more from, so I was happy to see that in this film. I was worried, like I said, with the two games in one, that they were going to try to cover too much, but they achieved it by cutting out a lot of So a lot of the in-depth things, they pick and chose their battles. It's Resident Evil 2, but there's no Tyrant in this movie. There's no Mr. X. It's a bit of a disappointment. I was kind of hoping to see it at some point, but at the end of the day, it would have been just a little too much to have. So I can understand why they left it out. They spent a lot of time setting up the characters. They spent a lot of time amping up the suspense, and I really like all that. They added some elements of where, like, Raccoon City is more like a small town in this one, and they added an element that Umbrella was already abandoning Raccoon City before this, and as if this was all planned. Now, I didn't mind that element. Again, it did kind of, make it even more nefarious and stuff like that, but it seemed a little unnecessary. There's a lot of stuff that I think they could have done without. We could have had more time for character moments. A lot of the character moments are kind of sped through because there's not a lot of time for it. So the best parts of the film, when the tension ramps up, when the zombies start coming out, when we're in the mansion, we're shooting the zombies, those are my favorite parts. It really feels like it's straight out of the games, and it's very intense. The score in this film is excellent, really ramps up the intensity, so I really enjoyed all that. My favorite scene in the whole film was probably Chris in a completely dark room, only lit. The room is only lit by his muzzle flash. Pew, 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 pew. And then he pulls out his lighter, like I said, so that's another Easter egg. There's a ton of Easter eggs in this film, and you're going to enjoy just picking all that out. So, the big villain of the film is Birkin, and you'll be expecting that if you're a Resident Evil 2 fan. But I will say, honestly, he's a little underutilized. They did a great job setting him up, and they had a great standoff scene with him and Wesker. But, when the transformation happens, at that point, the end of the film is very rushed. That's the biggest disappointment to me. The climax really felt very simple. There wasn't a lot to it. I wanted more. I wanted it drawn out and a bit more intense, but it really wasn't. It felt more like an epilogue. They kind of took the epilogue ending of Resident Evil 2 and tried to make that the main ending of this film, and it just didn't really work because, that was like a bonus that you got for finishing both campaigns right, but in the film, I wanted something a little more out of the ending. So that's a bit unfortunate. Now, again, with the characters, we didn't get to see, like, Chris and Jill spend a lot of time together in this film. Again, the character moments just kind of sped through. There was a lot of shout-outs, like I said. Like, we had the piano from the mansion, but we didn't have Jill playing the Moonlight Sonata. It just felt a little wrong. But, again, those are little changes I can understand. I did like what they did with Wesker. It just felt a little weird. Like, it wasn't the same character again because he's a young guy. He's not the Wesker from the games, who was already working for himself at this point. But they do some nice sequel setup with the character, and, spoiler alert, minor spoiler alert, go forward 15 seconds. Ada shows up, and it's kind of cool, but we didn't get to see her and Leon, which, I mean, probably for the best, because this version of Leon is just so incompetent. The ending being kind of rushed was my biggest disappointment with the film, and how dirty they did Leon. But everything else I really enjoyed. I mean, I love the tone of it. It's immersive. It's good zombie action, and it's not as cheesy as I thought it would be. It's not as cheesy as the games are, to be honest. So it does kind of work. There was some, like, character building stuff at the beginning I thought we could have gone through a little faster and spent a little bit more time elsewhere, especially at the ending. Like I said, it would have been nice. Honestly, there are probably a bit too many cast members. Maybe if we just had Claire and Leon, maybe if we just had Chris and Claire, I felt like they were trying to introduce too many characters. So it is a bit, the bloated part was definitely an element, but it wasn't the plot. It was the fact we had so many characters. So I actually did, like I said, I did like the orphanage element. Those are some of my favorite scenes. I mean, we got kind of minor spoiler alert, but we got Lisa in this film, but she's not like a villain in this one. She wasn't really in the games either, but she was kind of an enemy you had to run away from, right? But you did feel bad for her in the games. Again, underutilized, but it was nice to have her there. I do. There's a part of me that just wishes they picked one of the games and just did a bit more of a straight adaptation. But I actually do like this little remix. It's cool because it's like elements of both, but it's neither at the same time. So it's new and old at the same time. And you get a lot of those little shout outs. I mean, we had the title card looking exactly like how it does in the first game. We had, so many little things that add up to kind of a fan service thing. So I really liked a lot of that. Yeah, the effects were excellent. The zombie prosthetics, great. The action was great. Ooh, one thing, one of my pet peeves in movies is when gun stuff, because I actually know guns. I've shot guns, and I know about them. Not an expert or anything, but I do know about them. It's when they get gun stuff wrong in movies that kind of bothers me. This movie does it much better than most. These cops actually know what trigger discipline is. Meaning they don't have their finger on the trigger until they're ready to shoot, except for Jill, because like I said, she's characterized as a hasty trigger finger. So that's her character. She's the only character that has her finger on the trigger, and the rest of them, have their fingers as it should be. So it's a little thing that I noticed I really liked. They have a scene with Chief Irons. He loads up a revolver, and then you can count the shots. He shoots it 6 times and then he's out. And there's so many movies where they do that wrong. I mean, even we talk about Walking Dead all the time. There's many scenes in The Walking Dead where they get that wrong, but they literally had a guy with a revolver shoot like 7 shots in a revolver. It's like, come on, dude. Like, so it bugs me when they get gun stuff wrong. This movie does it way better than most, so that was nice. And sound design was excellent. Score, excellent. The suspense really worked for me. It's a lot of good action. So yeah. Now the zombies I have a bit mixed feelings on, because like I said, they look great, and when you're in the mansion, excellent, right? But they have them talking a lot, and we do have a lot of bioweapons in the universe now that are talking and stuff. I mean, especially the more recent games. But I like that in the more recent games. Evolving the bioweapons is cool. But these basic zombies, I don't really like them talking too much. I mean, we already kind of we kind of popped that cherry with Resident Evil 2 remake. We had it was the Resident Evil 2 remake, or was it the third remake? One of the remakes, we had the guy in Resident Evil 2, the guy that was bit. I forget his name right now, but I like that character. But he did say sorry to a guy that was about to shoot him. So, but this movie has them talking all over the place. So, no, I do get like them having them talking before they become full-on zombies, but they're already kind of full-on zombies and they're still talking. It does make it's different. I think they did it because they want it to be different than so many zombies that we see now. I mean, the zombie genre is very overdone now. So maybe they wanted it to be something a little different. So it didn't bother me that much. But what did bother me was they had Birkin in the Transform talking a lot. It really kind of made him less intimidating. I get like having him talk a little bit, but they relied on that a little too much. So yeah, the dogs, excellent. I do wish that we got some more creatures though. We pretty much got the zombies, the dogs. We got one licker, which was really cool, but I feel like the licker was ditch-patched in a way that was a little too easy. And it was a great scene. I do like the scene. It just felt a little underutilized. But that's pretty much it as far as creatures go. There's no, none of the, like, troll dudes. We don't have, like, the zombie, the sharks, from the first game. We don't have Mr. X. Like I said, no tyrant in this game. So there was a lot of missed opportunities, But in general, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I would say, but not for Resident Evil purists, but if you're a fan and you're okay with something a little different, just go in knowing that they're going to do Leon dirty, and you'll probably have a great time with this film. I will give it like a 7 out of 10. So I enjoyed it a lot. It's not like high art or anything, but it's the best Resident Evil film that I've seen, and it's an easy recommend. If you've enjoyed the first 2 games and you have fond memories of them, definitely check it out. So yeah, in general, guys, a lot of the new elements, they did work for me. Like I said, the play between Chris and Claire really worked, and they had a good conclusion to that. They had some great action in the mansion in particular, and a lot of new things that I enjoyed, and just all the Easter eggs were so fun to pick out. So it is definitely made by a fan. There's no getting around that. There's a fan making this film. But I do wish some of the characters were a bit more like their game counterparts, especially Leon and Jill. I felt that I wasn't really too fond of how they were changed. But that's not even me being a purist. It's just like, I like those versions of the characters better. So it's just a preference thing. It's going to come down to that. So it's an easy recommend. So for Resident Evil fans, I enjoyed it. It's a good film. I liked it. So yeah, definitely more than I was expecting. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you saw the film, definitely let me know what you thought about it. If I missed something, definitely let me know. If you agree or disagree, let me know. And I'd love to hear from you. Definitely smash subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, more Resident Evil videos, and horror games in general, horror movies. We talk about that stuff a lot, amongst other things. We do a lot of other type of things here, too. We do a lot of Walking Dead videos. We do all kinds of stuff. Pretty much just whatever I'm interested in. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. So, smash like if you like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.